What's up, everybody? It's your boy Royalty, and we're back here with another upload. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. Now, if you can't tell already, I'm fucking drained. I've played 2 tournaments, set up 3 different Discord servers, played a few scrims, and been in like 4 different meetings with a few different teams, talking about shit. So I'm just drained. So today's story time is going to be on the time my friend got caught with like 2 different fucking bags of weed in his locker while at a military private school. So before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys know that I know I've been changing my name a lot. It went from Azriel to Cynics and now it's Royalty. I'm not going to promise that I won't change it again, but I'm going to try not to. This graphic that I'm getting done is hopefully going to be good enough for the channel, so hopefully it'll stay Royalty for the rest of my YouTube shit. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. So this story time takes place around 2 months after my second story time did. The one with Jake where, we got into a big-ass fight. The whole entire school was involved with it. So this is around 2 months after that. He'd already gotten out of suspension. I think he'd gotten in trouble another time and gotten in school suspension, but nothing large up to this point. So I've always known that Jake was in some deep shit, more because his brother's a drug dealer, and, his mom is dead, and his dad isn't very involved, so it's bound to happen at some point if you're around a sibling who deals with that shit. So 2 months after, it's still winter. It's not peak winter like it was then, but it was definitely not warm outside. We were chilling in math class, which is our 3rd period. So I'd say it's around noon, because 4th period was when we would go and eat lunch. And we're vibing, about 15 minutes left in class. And at this point, most of our work was done. Me and him always used to finish up as fast as possible, even if we got everything wrong, so that we could slide onto our phones. Because for some reason, the military school is less strict than the public school I go to now, which is kind of fucking weird, but it is what it is, I guess. So yeah, we slide onto our phones after getting all of our work finished, and it's just a normal day vibing. And normally there would be different people coming in and out of the classroom that were in high school, because there was these things, because the school I was going to was only around 3 years old, so it was a fairly new school. They didn't have a lot of staff on board yet, because all the pay wasn't worked out. They didn't have the pay for the employees coming in from the state yet, so it was definitely a bare bones school. So they'd have to have fucking high schoolers help out with certain stuff around the school, such as like going up to classrooms to get kids that were getting called down to the office or getting checked out by their parents, all that kind of stuff. It was just like an office helper, and it would go on your grades as like an extra like AP shit. So I think we had like 2 people come in and out getting kids, and it definitely wasn't abnormal. But what was abnormal is the fact that Jake's brother had come into the classroom right as I had thrown my headphones in. This is super abnormal. Jake's brother, let's just call him Damon, was definitely not a help out kid. He was definitely a troublemaker. Unless you were helping him out, or unless you guys are friends, or quote unquote family, it definitely wasn't one of those things where he would just like hand out help to get better grades. He didn't give a shit about his grades, because his parents didn't give a shit about his grades either. So it was just, it is what it is, I guess. So his brother comes in, and he's holding this little slip of paper. Now, this isn't the same color as the slips of paper that are usually used to get the kids checked out, but our teacher that was teaching our math at the time was just staring at his computer working out grading papers, so it was just kind of free reign for him to do whatever he wanted. So he walked into the classroom, kind of looked at the paper, and he was like, I need blah blah blah. He said my name, and then he said Jake's name, and he said one other kid's name. So we go into the hallway, and Damon looks at us, and he's like, okay, listen, you guys aren't getting checked out, you're not getting called out of the office, but I need you guys to take care of something for me. And, Jake, knowing what he's into and knowing his past history with shit, automatically gets suspicious, and he is like, just looks at him, he's like, what's up? And I definitely don't want to get in trouble, especially because I'm already going to a military school, so it was just fuck that. So he hands Jake a bag. Now, we were specifically instructed not to check the bag. And I was not about to fucking put my fingerprints on that bag, so I was not holding the bag, and I for sure was not fucking opening it to see what was in there and risking my fingerprints getting on that shit. So, Jake, being just built different, opened the bag to see what it is once his brother had left. He had instructed us to go put it in a certain locker that was vacant. One of the kids had left, and they hadn't assigned a kid to a locker yet. So we're on our way down there, and like I said, Jake is just built different. So he opens the bag and he looks inside, and there's I'd say 2 or 3 different bags of weed in there. And it's not small bags. It's not like those Ziploc bags or the bags you get at school when you're fucking sick, and or those bags you used to get at school when you lost your tooth, so they give you a little tooth container and you'd have to put it in a bag. Maybe that was just me. Maybe my schools are just built different. But yeah, it's not one of those bags. I'm talking about the fucking 5-pound freezer bags that the cartel would use for their fucking coke. So there's 3 different huge bags of weed. Now, already straight off the bat, I'm like, what kind of fucking brother would hand off to his little brother at least 15 pounds of weed in a fucking backpack and instruct him to go put it in a locker? And you could tell that it wasn't because he was in an urgent situation where he needed to do something and this weed needed to get there. Because if that was a situation, there was shit that depended on it, like somebody's life or somebody was going to get hurt if it didn't get delivered there, that it would be a different story. I mean, it's still kind of fucked up to make your little brother deal with it, but there's at least some reasoning behind it. But this had no reasoning. He was just being lazy and didn't want to do it, so he passed it off onto his little brother. That's at least what his brother said. I think he was in some sort of trouble with some people downstairs, so he didn't want to go down there. Now, I think I forgot to add this part in, but Jake's brother Damon was in a gang. I'm not going to say what gang because I don't actually remember the name, and I don't want to fucking get gang members knocking on my door being like, you snitch. So let's just say that he was in a gang. Now, before you guys jump at me saying snitch, 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 everybody at my school knows about this. It ended up getting figured out by the parents, too, and the fucking board of directors at the school. So this is not new news. This is not going to get him in trouble. Anyways, so we are walking down there, and I'm just in pure shock, bro. I'm shaking. I don't want to get caught with this, but I know if I go back up to the classroom that early, the teacher's going to ask me what the fuck was going on. He's going to get suspicious because nobody's allowed to be down there without the pass, and if you have a pass, you're not down there for that short of a time. So I needed to do something. There was something that needed to be done, so I was there. Now, for some reason on this day, there was an abnormal amount of people walking around the hallways, and it wasn't students or anything, it was all the staff, and they were just eyeballing us weird because we didn't have the teenager with us. He had parted off, and we didn't have the high schooler with us, so we were just kind of walking around, and we had this white slip in our hands that none of us had actually checked to see what was on there yet. So yeah, so we get it in the locker, and while we're opening the locker, I hear a familiar voice behind me, and shit you not, it's my English teacher, and she's asking me what I'm doing out of class and if I have a hall slip, and I, at that moment, realized that I didn't check the damn paper slip. So it was one of 2 things. I was about to hand her a paper slip that was a blank, empty fucking piece of paper, or somehow he had finagled himself into getting our names on a piece of paper, and it would actually work. Yeah, none of those happened. I handed her the piece of paper hoping that it would be the second one. It would be our names on there. And it was 2 completely fucking random names. Completely random. Luckily, they were guys' names. And I wasn't very close with my English teacher. I fucking hated her, and I'm pretty sure she despised me too. She would jump at anything to get me in trouble. But I don't think she remembered my name because she was like, okay, and then hand me the slip. So I was surprised, so was he. Luckily, nothing else stopped us on our way back after putting the shit in the locker. So after that, I'm sure this is going to surprise you, but I actually pretty much forgot about it. There was some other shit going on with some other people at the time at the school, which is a whole nother story time for another day. But we had put everything back in and just forgotten about it. Now, lunch, and then 5th period, 6th period, all that shit goes good. Now, 7th period is our last period of the day. It's like an hour long. It's our biggest one. And for me, it was physical activity, which was also known as Raiders, because I was in the second physical activity course because I had passed the first one fast enough to get into the second course. So I was in Raiders, and me and one other 7th grader at the time were in there. So I only had one other person in there that was my age, because a lot of them didn't end up passing it. Luckily, I'm small, so I was able to run the fucking agility courses and pass that. At least get enough points to pass the course. So I have one other 7th grader in there, and somebody walks in mid-class. There was nothing too crazy about this one. We were just learning how to tie knots and like drag each other around with them. You just remember, this is a military school, so it was like survival instinct shit. So somebody walks in with a piece of paper, and they're like, I don't really know how to read this handwriting, but it's a 7th grader. So I don't know this other 7th grader. It's a girl. So I look at her and I'm like, is that you? And she's like, I'm not expecting anybody. So the dude comes over and he's like, let me know if you can like read that, or at least make out the first letter of a word, because I know you guys have different names. And sure as hell, it has the first letter of my name in it. And I'm automatically like, what the fuck? Because I don't get called down to the office. Like, I'm not too big of a troublemaker. Like, that fight was a rare occasion. I was a really big troublemaker when it came to 6th grade, 5th grade, all that shit and below, but I honestly changed before I went into 7th. So it was surprising. So I walked down there, and they're telling me all this shit about Jake and all that, and they hadn't said anything about the drugs in the locker yet, so I was hoping that we had gotten off the hook. But, you know, God is just built different, so he smacked me in the face with a big fuck you. And, yeah, they were like, do you know anything about this? Because we see you in camera here walking with them, and you see what's in the bag. And I was like, oh, Jesus, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I am really sorry. I should have came to you guys. I shouldn't have came to them. I didn't come to them, and that's because I'm not a snitch. And before I said anything, before you guys attack me, I did ask if fucking Jake had been in there, and they had said yeah, and I actually did see him walking back in the hallway beforehand, so I believed it. So I explained like half of it. I didn't give too much information. I basically just asked, I basically just answered what they asked me, to the bare minimum that I could. So I didn't give too much information that hadn't been given yet. So they're like, oh, that wasn't helpful, but thanks for telling us. And I was like, yep, no problem. And they're like, next time this happens, please don't ignore it. Like, come tell us. Luckily, I got off the hook because I didn't have any involvement with holding the bag. I knew that was a good decision, because if I was holding the bag, I probably would have gotten up to 3 days of in-school suspension. So I see Jake get called back into the office as soon as I'm done, and this dude looks fucking angry at the fact that they're even acknowledging that he exists. He walks in there, and I'm sitting in the hallway with 2 other kids that were involved. I didn't know them, but I knew that they were involved because I've seen them walking around with Daniel before. Wait, not Daniel, Damon. I'm stupid. Anyways, so we all get in trouble. Luckily, I got off the hook because I didn't have any involvement in it. But Damon and Jake are the ones who got in the biggest trouble, because Damon was the one who physically gave it to his little brother, and Jake was the one who physically put it in the locker to hide it. So they got in trouble, and they both got suspended for 2 weeks. Now, the next story time that I'm going to tell you guys about is going to be in the next video, or at least next story time I do, is going to be what happens after this story time, because this is the one that got them both expelled. But yeah, that's it for today's story time. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you didn't, no worries. I'll be bringing some more content here soon. I'm looking to do collaborations with some people, maybe montages, maybe even go into VC and just fuck around in some pub matches or something, play some tournaments. So if you're interested, comment down below. I will leave my Discord tag in the description so that you can add me on Discord if you're interested. If not, it is what it is. Like, subscribe, share the channel, please. And yeah, just stay vibing.